the rate of change that's happening in our society at large is increasing exponentially. It's only been a few years from when this whole thing started.
I'm not as maybe scared as most people are of this like exponential future. AI is empowering people to do more with less, and that's going to cause a problem down the road.
Welcome to Price, Sell, Paint, the go-to podcast for painting contractors and sales professionals in the painting industry. Hosted by industry experts John Bryant and Michael Murray. This podcast is proudly powered by PaintScout, your partner in painting success.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Price, Sell, Paint. I'm John Bryant. This is Michael Murray. How you doing today, Michael?
Hey, what's up, John? Doing wonderful. How are you?
Wonderful as always. Maybe not as always. Today's pretty good though. Yeah, I know we've been chatting a little bit about AI in the painting industry. I think everybody that I see chatting about things online is also chatting about AI in the painting industry. And I think it's a fun topic. I think it's one that's interesting. And I know you and I both have a lot of thoughts about this. So maybe a good place to start is we've been talking about what's going on in the world today. It is October 2025. And fill us in, Michael. You were telling me some news on the painting industry, and I think it's quite interesting. And it leads into a discussion about AI for sure.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of news recently about just layoffs in different companies. And Sherwin-Williams, we were talking about their 401k and different things have been going on, and it just seems like there's a lot of conversations around in our industry about maybe some softening. Let's just say, right, where maybe like the economic trends aren't in our favor, and so we have to maybe be a little bit more creative as to like adding overhead and like that. And so that's some of the conversations that we've had at Textbook and trying to figure out creative ways that we can use AI. And I think there's a lot of like the rate of change that's happening in our society at large is increasing exponentially. We're having a conversation around AI. To your point, like it seems like kind of everybody's talking about it now, but this is something that I've been really like loved learning about and playing with since it came out. Whatever that was, November of 22, I think. And I mean, it's something that we've been trying to figure out ways to use since that point, and I feel behind. And it's because of like the rate of or the pace of like change and like how quickly models are coming out and just new capabilities are coming out. It's like, man, this is hard to keep up with.
Yeah.
So I think the future is kind of crazy when you think about like, well, if it's only been a few years from when this whole thing started, what's it going to look like in 3 to 5 years from now? Like that's almost like unfathomable to a level.
Yeah.
But it's fun to think about.
It is fun to think about. And hopefully we can think about it today live with people.
Let's do it.
Listening.
I think we certainly don't have all the answers.
No, certainly not. I've experienced it from AI, from a painting contractor's perspective, as well as from a software perspective. And it's interesting. I'm not as like convinced. I'm not as maybe scared as most people are of this like exponential future. I think there's a lot of hype. There's a lot of, this is going to change everything. And I'm just not sure that's true. I know here in Canada, when, cannabis became legal, there was like no word of a lie, Michael, there was like 5 cannabis shops within a block of my house that opened up.
Okay.
And I was like, I know people are excited about this, but 5 stores, like, that's a lot. And you go to the stores, you talk to people about the stores or whatever, and it was like everyone is like, this is it. Like everyone is getting in, and give it 2 years, and the major manufacturers are like, the stock has plummeted. There's 1 store barely left. Like it kind of has a similar ring to me of hype, where it's like everyone goes to the next shiny thing, and this is that shiny thing. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of power here, and a lot of things that if it were to go away tomorrow, I'd be sad. But for our industry, I think understanding what the potential is and how to use it in a really simple way to start is important. Like get a grasp of it. So in my world, and the story that we were talking about earlier was this conversation I had with somebody who was at a software company, and they're in the talent acquisition space. We were talking about the like why they might be interested in getting out of that space. And what they said was, there's just a lot of oversaturation, and it gets harder to grow. AI is empowering people to do more with less, and that's going to cause a problem down the road for companies like ours. And looking at the trades, they had just had this experience of trying to do a repair on their home. They'd purchased a home and it had some building envelope problems, and it was requiring them to take the stucco off and all the insulation and go all the way down to the studs.
Oh.
And this person, it was their first home, and they thought, well, this must be pretty straightforward. I'll call some companies and have them come out. And he said what the experience actually was like the most eye-opening experience of what would you call it even? Like they've been operating in a software world where they thought it was all obvious and straightforward, and they came to what felt like it was the caveman era,
Stone Age, yeah.
like the
There you
Stone
go.
Age.
Yeah.
Overnight, it was, let me come out to your house in a week or two. I'm going to show up late. I'm not going to tell you maybe I'm coming even. Let's show up. I'm going to give you an estimate in a couple days. The range that I'm going to give you is between $10 and $120,000, and it might be more. We're just not sure. And he was like, "This is crazy. Like the amount of opportunity here for trades to just advance a little bit, like
a little bit of low hanging fruit.
Just a little bit of low hanging fruit here is absolutely absurd."
And you said too, though, how long did it take to get the quote?
Oh, it was like a couple days, like or maybe a week. It was like because there was a variety of estimates here. He said like nothing was on the spot, nothing was like concrete. Like this is like sign me up for this. Like it was crazy. So I start to think about this problem that we're talking about AI, and everyone's talking about like this magical world of like the robots are going to start painting people's homes or commercial properties or whatever. And I'm like, well, maybe we could just get a lead intake form and have someone show up properly. Like that would be wonderful.
You're getting crazy. Now you're just getting crazy over here.
Getting wild.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I didn't even think of it. We didn't talk about it like when we were kind of getting ready for this, but I actually had some tree work done at our house recently. So I had some trees taken down, and it's like the exact same experience. Like we get a quote, paper form, it's like $5,000 or whatever to get these trees taken down. Like, okay, cool. So we sign up. Yep, we're good. They don't ask for any money. It's just like, all right, yep, we'll come out when we can come out. I'm like, okay. No conversation. Nothing happens for 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And then I joke you not, at 8:45 at night, I get a text message. Hey, we can be there tomorrow morning. And I'm like, okay. Luckily, I've got some work flexibility, so I guess I'm working from home tomorrow. Like, all right, what time are you guys going to be here tomorrow? We'll be there at 8:30. Perfect. Okay. 7:45 in the morning. All these big trucks show up in front of my house, and they're done at like early afternoon, and it's just like, this is crazy. My first thought was like, man, like I need to go into the tree business because there is a lot of opportunities to turn up some customer service and sophistication here.
Oh, totally. So I think it's wild. Like here we are, having these high level discussions of what AI is going to do, and let alone like you can't get an accurate time when someone's showing up. We can't get estimates.
Well,
they're not even digital. Like people can't even answer the phones. It's like, wow, this is, I think the level at which we're thinking here is pretty high. And not to say that AI can't be helpful, for sure it can be, but I think there's some real tangible things we can do to use it to our benefit to just do some simple things right off the start.
For sure. Yeah. So it's interesting. I thought, I think what we talk about today is like some of the ways that we're using AI currently, as well as just like how we're thinking about it going forward.
Sure. Yeah. Sounds great.
I had a conversation with our leadership team here at Textbook just this week. And then like really kind of it became like a side conversation with our HR manager about like what I think is kind of like the future in the painting industry and like how we need to use AI. And so let me just kind of recreate that here. I think it's really relevant. And I think I don't know that I'm like thinking about it the right way, but it's how I'm thinking about it. And so it goes something like this. I think that there's many other industries that are already being impacted, many professions where you don't need to hire as many people because AI can like augment, or like superpower, I guess, like what one person can do. They're more capable. So if one person can produce the same outputs that maybe two could before, we need less people to produce the same outputs. And so then I think what's going to happen is like talented, intelligent people are going to start to look for other places to go work. And I think one of those places will be in the trades. They're similar to the experience with the guy that you said that you were meeting with. People are going to look at these industries like they've been doing for, at least like 10 to 15 years with like HVAC and others, and saying, hey, we're going to go over there. And I think there's some unsophisticated competition. I can go over there and do well. So I think that's going to one continue to happen, but I think it more so happen than maybe our industry specifically has experienced. And so then the first thing that they're going to do is fix what we're talking about, right? They're going to come in and compete on, marketing, sales, some communication, sophistication, some of the things that we think are like kind of no brainers. Like, yeah, like we're going to tell you when we're going to show up at your house. Like that sounds pretty good. And so then what's going to be left if we're all pretty good at marketing and sales, which we're currently not, but if we were, what would be left is who can actually like execute, who can send the crew members that are the best, that are going to do the great work, that are going to provide an awesome experience, who are going to, look nice and smell nice and talk nice and do all the things that we all know, like especially in residential painting, that, it is kind of important. And so there's actually going to be like, and again, I think this is already happening. I think it's going to speed up, but there's going to be like an arms race towards who can hire the best people to actually do the work. Because again, getting the work is going to be relatively easy, which I would argue it kind of is. Not to say that sales is necessarily always easy, but it's just like compared to hiring and delivering the services. And so, okay, if we think that's going to be true, what that means then is we're going to have to pay our painters more, right? Which again, I would make the argument we're already seeing. I know that's been our experience at Textbook the last 5 years since COVID. Like wage pressure is just, very high. If we want to hire somebody to come in here and like is an awesome person with or without experience, we need to pay them significantly more than we did in like 2017, 18, and 19. You agree with me so far? Make sense?
So far, I'm on the same page.
Yep. And so it's like, okay, cool. So if we say, okay, we're going to have to do that. So then what are we going to do? Well, we can raise our prices to afford to pay painters more, which we should always be doing. There should always be the question of like, how do we raise our prices? How do we deliver more value? Both of those things have to happen at the same time, or else we have problems. We talked about that before. We could make less profit. If we pay our painters more, we don't raise our prices, nothing else changes. We make less profit. I don't know about you. I don't like that answer. So I'm going to cross that one off the list. And then the third one is I have to be able to deliver my services with less overhead. And for, a company like ours and, PaintScout and, there's significant overhead involved. And it's like, how do we more efficiently do what we're doing? The answer to that, I think, is, okay, how do we use AI in our painting business, not to replace the painters, but how do we use it to augment, not necessarily replace, but like maybe replace some of our overhead expenses? How do I bring down my overhead expenses as a percentage of revenue so that I can shift more of that revenue towards paying our crew members? And like that's the whole paradigm shift that we're focused on right now. And so then I go to how do we, marketing, lead intake, sales, admin costs, vehicle expenses. We start to look through like what are the big overhead buckets and what are ways that we can increase our revenue without necessarily having to increase those expenses at the same rate, hopefully by using some technology and things like that, not just asking people to do more, but actually like use technology so that we don't necessarily have to like hire a second, person to answer the phone. The first person, can be more efficient within that role, things like that. That's how we're excuse me, that's how we're like I'm challenging our team to start to think about AI in all the different facets of like the overhead of our company.
Yeah, so I think like there a few things come to mind there. One, I think obviously we see this already. There's a massive amount of people needed in the trades these days, and there's a lot of jobs that are going to be transitioning because of these types of things that every business is experiencing. And so right now, though, there's a lack of supply for trades, and demand, I think, is going up. So I, I think younger generations aren't doing it themselves. Like DIY is a little bit of a lost art. So that's going to offer even more opportunity to increase prices, which will allow us to have these types of good systems behind the scenes, and that professionalization will keep increasing. So I agree with all of that. I think learning to use these things, and I know a lot of, like on our podcast, it's a lot about sales and how do you use this to be more efficient. There's obviously the business operation side, there's
Yep.
lots of opportunities, but from a sales perspective, if you're a sales rep listening, what do you have a sense of like specific things you're encouraging your team to do, Michael, with AI or tools they're using to
Yeah.
amplify that for them?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that sales is like a big one, right? Like that's a one that we can really say, okay, if I'm a business owner, I'm just thinking about the sales side of the business, right?
Mhm.
Let's just say, I don't know, what would you say we've talked about this before, but like what would be a good top line sales number for a res repaint rep in like a single year? How much should one rep be able to sell?
What year are they in?
Let's say they're somewhere in their like not maybe not first year, but like year 2 or 3, somewhere in not like super seasoned, but definitely not new either.
1.5 million.
That's where my number was.
Yeah.
Okay, so historically, then as a business owner or whatever, we would just kind of do that math. If I'm going to run a $3 million top line revenue business, I'm going to need at least two reps, somewhere in that neighborhood, and I have to start to think of that exponentially. And it's like, okay, well, what can I do? How can I get a sales rep to sell 2 million? Well, like what we've often thought of in the past was like, oh, I know, we'll just get them to like work more. They'll just do more estimates. If they just did, what if we just, instead of working 40 hours a week, we're going to work 50. It's like, okay, well, that could work. Problem is that there's fewer and fewer people, especially younger people, that are like, oh, tell me how I work more hours and I'm going to sign up for that job. Myself included. Like, that's not my goal in life either. I'm not judging anybody. And so it's like, okay, so then how can we help our sales reps just to be more efficient with their time?
Mhm.
We're for an example, like we're currently building custom software to help us with our like lead scheduling and like route planning. We have reps that will often drive. Our territory is about I would say like an hour in any direction, meaning from like one end to the other it could be like a 2 hour drive. Now typically we're not, we're already better than that just with like some very simple thoughts or whatever. But it's like, how do we eliminate just some of the like driving using AI and like Google Maps and some other tools to like route plan better?
Mm.
In other industries, this stuff has, it's a little bit more common, but we haven't necessarily felt maybe the pain and the problem of that because it's like, meh, it's not that big of a deal. Our sales reps are selling really well, and like, whatever. They're driving around a little bit. Gas isn't that expensive. Like, it's not really the biggest problem to solve.
Mhm.
But if I start to think about it, it's like, well, what if I could get my rep to just by eliminating drive time, if they could just do like one more estimate a week?
Mhm.
Like, well, it's kind of like staggering if you start to think about like if they sold half of those and they did, let's just say 50 more estimates in a year, that's 25 more sales, right? Everybody's average job size is a little bit different, but you're selling somewhere probably between 100 to $150,000 more, you know, pretty easily, if not more. And it's like that's with no more extra effort, no more time, just eliminating some drive time by some better route planning. That can be a way that we can use a tool, like AI or whatever to be able to do that. One of many.
Man, I'm so curious to see how that how that comes together for you. I mean, I've thought of this problem through so many times, and I think like the variables of fit of sales rep, how their days plan, like there's a bunch there. So I'm really
Yeah.
curious because I think you're right. Like that type of stuff should be possible. It's just been we've chalked it up to variable. The variables cause it to be difficult to get right because we don't have the same volume. Like if you're an HVAC plumbing type outfit, it's like they have 6 stops per day
Right.
and they're like all over the place. Whereas like we might be talking about like like you said earlier, like it's a small data point. And you're like, well, there's 3 today. It's not that hard to if you mess it up. It's no big deal. But I will say that like my one of our my brother who has been on the podcast before, and people know like route planning takes a lot of time. There's a lot of driving, and if you could save that time, like he was in the car, like I asked him the other day, he was in the car for 4 hours. Like, well, that's not a good use of time. And like like the virtual side of things is not effective for what he does. So he has to go see these things. And would it be nice if he could just kind of batch a little better? So I see the value for sure. Um,
Yeah, one of the tools that we've been using a decent amount, I would say, like we're a little late to the game with it, and so there's probably others that are using it more. I kind of like put it off, thinking like, this wasn't really I'm like, I don't know that this is going to add value, and that's one of the things that like I'm really loathsome of with AI. It's like I don't want AI to just like add more noise and stuff. I went to this like AI like workshop, and all they talked about was like, oh, you can use AI for like marketing and lead generation, and it's gonna be awesome. You're gonna like pump out like 5 podcasts a day and like 10 videos and 50 like blog posts. And I'm just like nobody wants that. Like nobody. Why do I need to put out 10 YouTube videos a day of just like complete hot garbage that is all AI generated? Like maybe that works for like lead generation for 6 months, and then it's only a matter of time until Google and YouTube and wherever we're trying to generate these leads from, or just get sophisticated enough to say like this is just crap and we're going to stop
mhm.
showing. It's like SEO was like that back in like 2006, 7, and 8, where if you just put the word painting on the web page enough, you were going to rank well. I think it's like a lot of us can still remember those days, and it like quickly just went away.
Those were the good old days, Michael.
Like good old days, right after the yellow pages.
when I would, when you could just stack a ton of words all in the same color as your background.
That's what I was
That
gonna
was
say.
the
You got to
best.
hide them. Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah.
that was ninja
We have a
level,
white background and I have the word
right?
painting 7,000 times in white.
Yeah. And so what you would do is you build a course teaching painting companies how to do that with AI, and that's how you make money.
It's
Oh
so easy,
no,
man. Yeah.
so easy. Anybody can do it. So yeah. Anyways, it's just like no, I just don't want to create more noise. Another thing that anyway. So I was getting onto this. Like I was worried about that, but the tool is really just through CompanyCam. And I love the PaintScout CompanyCam like integration. I know a lot of PaintScout users are also users of CompanyCam, but their like AI features are pretty good, and like they have these like walkthroughs essentially is I think the title, but it's like it's awesome. Like you can just like talk into the video, and it like builds like a output essentially for like the production team where they can kind of better understand like what it is that we're going to be doing on the project and like see the photos and different things like that. And where before somebody might have had to like we might have asked a sales rep to like, hey, on the first day of this project, if you could just like show up and like walk the crew through, make sure everybody knows what they're doing. This is a big project, we don't want to have any issues. Like now with tools like this company can AI features, we can get the video, get a bunch of pictures, and like create like this detailed output that the crew leader can then have and really like help to streamline communication, be a lot more asynchronous. We don't have to get everybody's schedules to line up, frees up the sales reps to go focus on selling work. So
Totally.
that's a tool I would say that we're kind of new to, but I'm seeing a lot of potential there.
Yeah. Communication's a big part. Like if um, AI for, checking emails, generating better communication on emails, especially like that note-taking element, really strong. And I think it's such a great use for what we do, which is, I mean, sales reps spend so much time on that, just trying to communicate the job.
Yep.
And yeah, it's super, super helpful.
One of the tools that we haven't talked about, which I think is like the one that probably many people have heard about, is just like the voice recorders.
Mhm.
There's a handful of these Rilla, Ciro, Craft, which is a newer one that I wasn't as familiar with, but they kind of all do similar things where it's essentially, we're going to record the entire sales appointment and we're going to give you some like AI generated like coaching and feedback. I'm open to trying that. We have not done it mostly because I feel like it is way expensive. And I also know that it's just like all of these technologies are built on these AI large language models. They're not using their own like large language model. They're building it off of these other tools. And I'm just like, I just can't justify spending 10,000 plus a year on something that I know is like just being built on the software that I have at my fingertips.
Yeah.
But I do think there's a lot of potential if used correctly and embraced and different things where we can get like, coaching and feedback and eliminating a lot of like the sales manager ride-alongs. I think that can be another like awesome tool in a way that we could use AI to kind of augment the sales aspect of our industry.
Totally. To your point though, like I'm pretty sure you can just record on your phone, upload to ChatGPT, and it might do the same thing to some extent. Like I'm totally with you there. I think the value is like it's diminishing quickly because of the availability of other things that do the same thing.
Yep.
ChatGPT 5 will take that stuff in a second and just like give you feedback. If it's
Yep.
like you might want to load it with
Yep.
some type of a sales system, be
Mhm.
like, how did they do based on this system?
Yep.
And that's not a hard thing. So like I kind of sometimes see some of these services as like packaging it nicely so people understand
That's what it
the
is.
prompt they should have used in ChatGPT.
Yeah. It's just like a
And
little
and
bit
maybe
of
I'm
like
wrong.
done
Maybe
for you.
like I'm saying it all out loud, and like there's somebody listening from those apps. Like I'd love to hear more as to like why there's a special sauce to it, because it's possible I'm just not educated enough on it. But I've used like ChatGPT to summarize lots of different things, um, even our own podcast. Like tell me what we're doing here. What actually did we talk about? Because I can't remember. It's been 50 of them now, Michael.
50?
So 50.
Man.
This is 50, 52, I think. But
Huh.
so we hit
Hopefully,
our
hopefully we're getting better because I'm sure those first 30 weren't any good. So,
rough, yeah, super rough.
um, I'll tell you another tool actually that we're using AI, and I think it's a cool use case. I think I talked to you about this months ago when we first did it. I created a custom GPT for our sales team, which
Mm,
is our like textbook sales coach GPT.
yeah, yeah, I like that. It's great.
And I put into it all of the transcripts from our podcast. I put in all the transcripts from the PaintScout X conference videos, some other content that we had over the years on like created on just like our sales system and sales training and just written things that I had. And it's just some other like sales training materials. I trained it all on that. And we use that in our sales meetings for role playing. I encourage our sales team to use that like while they drive around. They can use like the voice mode. Role playing within the custom GPT is an awesome way to like for our sales team to sharpen their skill set a little bit.
So, like, I know
Yeah,
we've talked about this, but I think for people listening, like, what you did is fascinating. Maybe you can just walk through like a couple more steps of that because it's
sure.
super valuable. I've built custom GPTs. It's just a funny term to say, custom GPT. What does GPT stand for? Do you know?
We should probably answer that question accurately instead of
Do you wanna-
putting.
Because I've thrown this term around a lot, and so many times I'm like, Chat GPT, what is that? Can you ask ChatGPT what GPT stands for?
According to Gemini, because I just Googled it, GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. So let's go, and I got a second source that is telling me that that seems accurate. So
Oh, there you
I'm
go.
glad I didn't guess because I would have gotten that wrong.
Generative
Pre-trained,
what? Pre-trained
pre-trained
transformer.
transformer.
Wow, that's technical. But anyways, so
We're
we
just
created
dropping
these,
knowledge bombs here on the Price Sell Paint podcast.
and
I
we're
mean,
acknowledging we don't know everything, which it's always special.
I think most people
So the
listening should already know that. But anyway, we'll move on.
yeah, moving
We're just
on
a couple of
quickly.
knuckleheads that are talking about stuff. We don't pretend to be experts.
But like
um,
having developed
so
these now a couple times, like they're super helpful. So what? Maybe just walk through your process because maybe mine's a little different.
yeah, so I think again, so this is, I believe, only available if you're paying for ChatGPT, right?
Mm,
So $20 a month plan. I would suggest that's like if you're not paying for it, just do that. Like just start paying for it. That's one of the things I'm encouraging anybody who's like getting into AI is like just pay for it. It'll be a forcing function. It's going to force you to learn how to use it better.
mm,
It's also going to make it more comfortable when the cost starts to go up, and I think it will. Anyway, so we have the paid plan, and there's a like custom GPT section within there, or like I think it's all GPTs can just open this up. And so there's like a database of publicly available ones. You can find them on like the Sandler sales system. You can find them on, EOS for, business owners that are fans of Traction. There's, a lot of like custom GPTs that have been created by others that are made public. Or you can create your own. You can create a custom GPT that's like private only to you. You can create one that is private, but if you have the link, you can get to it, which is like ours. Or you can create it public where it's available. You can search within like the database or whatever. And then really what it's all about is you're just like pre-training it on your specific information. So instead of just like, all of the large language model training data, which it still has access to, it's like, I want you to specifically reference like our steps in our sales system, reference like how we teach how to handle a price objection or different things like that, whatever that, again, might be. We have a custom GPT for HR where we've put in our employee handbook, we put in our job descriptions, interview questions, our core values, all that kind of fun stuff. And then we use that, specifically our HR manager mostly uses that to create job descriptions, interview template questions, and things that are like relevant to our core values. They're not just like, you could go into ChatGPT and say, hey, give me 10 questions I could ask somebody in a painter interview, and they'll give you some. But if you pre-train it on like specifically the things that your company does and is looking for, you're going to get a better output. And that's basically the idea of a custom.
So when you say train, you're just giving information and saying like, act like you know this.
You're just, you're giving it like, you're literally putting in, just tons of information depending on, whatever you want that to be. And so like for the sales one, it took me probably like an hour or two. I'm getting the transcript. I'm I'm copying it into a like text file, I believe it is. And then I'm uploading that or copying and pasting it, whatever that looks like, into the custom GPT to like, and have it reference that later on in conversations.
Yeah. Has it been helpful for training?
Super.
I notice a difference. Yeah. It's like, so the amount of, again, like just amplifying or ability is huge, right? Like now you don't have to sit with those ride-alongs as much. Sales reps are getting answers, and that's
They
like
can.
a perfect example. Like I love that example. What we do.
I think an awesome use case is like you're on an appointment and a customer like stumps you with something, with an objection. Whatever it is, it's just something that you just don't feel like you handled it all that well. They said, hey, we're going on vacation next week, and so I'm not going to be able to make a decision for a few weeks, or I don't know, whatever it was. And you're just like, oh man, like I could have handled that better. What could I have done? You can just pull up your custom GPT within the Chat GPT app and go into voice mode as you're driving to your next appointment and just say, hey, I need you to role play with me. I need you to give me some coaching. This came up on my last appointment. The customer said this. I don't think I handled it really well. What are some other, like, give me 3 other ways that I could have handled this better to get to a better outcome, to get to closure, to have been able to sell the job? Like, what should my next question have been? Different things like that. And using the voice mode while you're driving, I do that all the time. I find that to be like an awesome way to use this technology.
Super cool. Oh man,
what else we got
what's
going
left? Yeah, there's nothing else.
Actually, I
that's the
thought
end
one
of
more
AI.
thing.
Oh,
That's the end of it.
yeah.
So no, there's like a million
Like,
things. This
no,
is
there's
like
so
as we
many,
sit
so
here
many.
longer, I'll give you another way that we're using it. So we're using it for before and after like renderings. So we were using ChatGPT. Now we just last little while here we switched over last couple weeks to Google Gemini with their Nano Banana, which is just fun to say, which is their like image generation tool that came out I think in September. And it is incredible. If you're not using it, like if you've never done that before, I would like, it'll blow your mind. Just take a picture, like a before picture from a project or whatever, and just ask it to like paint, whatever. Like, so we, kitchen cabinets, we do a lot of kitchen cabinets. Here's a picture of like somebody's wood cabinets. And I want you to paint them, with the Sherwin-Williams color navel. And it's like 10 seconds go by and it's like, boom, there you go. And it is incredibly perfect. It's to the point where it's like, we sure that's not actually just an after? It happens like instantly. Our sales team is supposed to be doing that ideally like on every single appointment. And it's like it's very impactful. What we do is very visual. And so
Mhm.
to be able to like show a homeowner, hey, this is what it could look like if we did this for you is pretty cool.
Have you been trying to include those on estimates for customers? Is that what you're doing with
Uh,
them?
that's what we're doing it live like at the estimate. Yep.
At the estimate, and that just on their phone, they take a picture, load it in Enable
Yeah,
Banana.
or on their iPad, but yep, exactly.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, that's really really great. The Yeah, the before and after, like we've struggled a little bit, at least in my past life, with trying to get before and after images, and then you got to send like somebody there before and someone there after.
Mm,
Probably is easiest to get them there after,
yeah.
but you don't get the before picture. Maybe if in a perfect world we send them before and then we just say, navel banana, change this change this to what we did, and
Yeah.
that could be really good because it's hard. Yeah, I mean, it going the opposite direction would be difficult. Like make this look like it was painted in 2000.
Yeah. One of my favorite, we have this picture, like you just have like getting actual before and afters.
Hmm.
And it's hard, right? We try to get our crew members to do this, again, in like CompanyCam or whatever. And we had this one kitchen we did probably like 4 years ago. It's beautiful. Like it's this amazing transformation. I just like, it's one of my favorite, like the countertops. And it's just so like the work we did was just awesome. And in the after, there's a like picture like so prominent in the foreground of a like Chipotle bag, just like sitting right there on the island. And I'm just like, it's so frustrating because I can't get, it's like been this never ending battle for our crews to like, not have like like the 5-in-1 sitting in the after picture or whatever. And I was like, you know what? I wonder if I could go in. I think I was using this a couple months ago. I think I was using ChatGPT at that point. And I was like, I wonder if I can ask it to just remove the Chipotle bag from this picture from like 4 years ago. That's like always driven me nuts. And it was just like, boom, there you go. I'm like, wow, like that's incredible. I could just give me like a decent after picture and I'll fix it all in post production using ChatGPT because I don't know how to do that in like Photoshop or whatever. I'm not smart enough, but I don't need to be anymore. And that kind of stuff is mind blowing to me. It makes me
Oh,
so
it's
happy.
so powerful.
Well, that's the simple things.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's some of the things. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to be, it's like, I think it's crazy the rate at which this stuff is happening. I don't know if you saw it just recently. Yeah, I really geek out on this stuff. I love learning about it. But OpenAI just put out a study that they did on basically like showing essentially like how viable are AI models in replacing the actual output of like real world business scenarios. And so they, I think it was called, I think it was like Val GDP or something like that. It just came out like this week. So if you kind of search for it, you can find this and reference what I'm talking about here. I'm not going to do the best job of explaining it. Pretty technical. I think it was like a 30-page paper. I took that 30-page paper, put it in Notebook LM, and learned all about it, or as much as I could, I guess. And I'm going to try to explain it here. But anyway, so it was really interesting. It was like, they took that, like some of the biggest industries, the biggest like segments of the United States economy, and places like healthcare, government, whatever. And they said, okay, we're going to do a blind like test, if you will. We're going to take like real humans, experts. On average, these people had 14 years of experience in their fields, marketing experts, and all these different things. And then we're going to give the same like instructions to all the different AI models, and we're going to compare them in a like blind test. So it might be create a marketing plan or create you know a customer service engagement or whatever, handle this customer inquiry or things like that. And it's like, okay, so if you can understand what they're doing. And then they took that and they put the outputs in front of another set of like industry experts, and it was blind, so you don't know which one's which. What was interesting is that about 47.5% of the time the experts chose the AI generated output.
Hmm.
And so more than half the time, we're still choosing the output that an expert in the field with 14 years on average experience is putting out there. But half the time, we're not. And like, like those are based on the current AI models. And it feels like every 2 or 3 months we get a new one. And it's just like the rate at which that percentage is going to go up, where people are actually saying, no, the AI output is actually better than the human expert in like again in these like real life examples, things that people do every single day in these industries. It's kind of crazy how quickly that kind of stuff is happening.
Yeah, it's so the people listening, I mean, like we've got this level of like pen and paper, get back to you in 2 weeks. And then you've got what you're talking about. And there's like one of the biggest barriers here about I think AI in general is having people learn how to use it. And so like I often, I mean, you mentioned earlier, like paying for ChatGPT, start to, force yourself into a world where you have to learn some of this stuff. Just get a feel for what's going on. Because yeah, you've got these crazy models, these things happening. And then what actually happens in real life, which takes a lot longer to incorporate. And I sometimes think about like, our business and getting people to change is really hard. And so I think, our encouragement has been like, get to know AI. If you don't, you're probably going to lose your job at some point to
You're
someone
going to
who
get left
does.
behind. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
And like, it's cool to think about all the things you can do, but just start doing something with it today. Kind of my major suggestion, because we see these like crazy, crazy things, especially on the software side. Just like, that's interesting. I wonder how that's going to go. Like, that's wild. I wonder how it's going to work.
Yep.
So yeah, one of the interesting things too, I mean, this is a total offshoot of this conversation, but it's where like the economics of AI goes. I don't know if you've done much reading on that, how it works, but you made a point about like ChatGPT being $20 a month and just like
Yep.
how much money they're losing and how much power goes into these, like essentially writing a nicer document.
Yeah.
And you start to look at it being like, there is not enough power. There's not enough
No,
capital,
not even close.
not even close. And so we're running on this world of like, all this is possible. What's actually economically possible? Like, are you willing to spend $1,000 a month on ChatGPT?
Am I? Yeah, I am. Yes, but the point is going to be though. That's why I'm saying to somebody like you got to start spending the 20, because if you don't, you're never going to see the like ROI on that. And
Mhm.
then when somebody else is willing to spend 1,000, you're going to look at it like, well, that's crazy talk.
Mm.
And it's just like, but if I'm already getting more than $1,000 a month of value out of it, when they raise the price to $1,000, I'm going to be like, yeah, okay, I'm already getting that. And so I'm going to assume if I'm getting more than $1,000 of value out of my $20 subscription, holy crap, what kind of value am I going to get when I start playing for the upgraded super duper one?
Right. Yeah, it's almost becomes like a differentiation factor of like, and I mean, can they find, there's all
That's
these big macro questions of like, can you
well,
actually find the
right.
customers to support $1,000 a month? But
No, for
to your
sure. Yeah.
point, it's like, get involved now, start seeing it from like the sales rep's perspective. If you're a sales rep, like there's that huge value. I think even in, we can talk about PaintScout too for a minute, which is like figuring out how to write better proposals, getting estimates up and running faster, using that, scheduling type functionality better. All of those things play with this type of functionality. And I think you gotta like start just getting into a little bit, even little things like identifying prospects, which is, pretty easy to do with the right prompts. Here's 10, 20 companies we've worked with, give us 10 or 20 more. That type of thing is great.
Yep.
And then for business owners, I mean, like systemization, the training, the back end knowledge bases that you've created, which I think it is really a great starting point for most people, is just cool. It's cool to do, and it's so helpful and such an easy way to get value with stuff.
Yeah. I mean, again, and I'm like, I don't believe I'm still in like the early learning of what's capable.
Mhm.
Uh, I'm trying to force myself to just use it more because I feel like I have way more to learn than I already understand, and that's based on the current capabilities. Which next week or whatever, it's gonna like double in capabilities, and it's like, oh my goodness, this is
Yeah,
crazy.
all of a
Uh,
sudden AI is painting houses, and that's a scary world. So
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's like when AI is painting houses, like all of the other things have already been replaced. Everything that happens on a computer has already been replaced. Like nobody's interacting with a computer like the way that we currently do. That's not a
Mhm.
job. And so, will like AI come for the painter's job? Maybe, but it will be like the last one taken, and at that
Mhm.
point, it'll just be either societies and governments have figured that out, or we haven't. And then, you can go and read about that side of this whole story, and it's a little scary. But yeah, I mean,
So,
the it's crazy.
so go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, no, I was just gonna, I mean, the power consumption is crazy enough to your point, but
Yeah.
yeah, the job, like, what are we gonna do if you know can't just take all the jobs? Like,
No.
yeah,
Well, can you imagine how many people will be available to paint? Like
uh,
how many your production
yep.
issues there'll be no problems.
Yeah.
But then
Except
the
you've got
problem
you're
is
gonna have
everybody can paint their own house. So it's kind of
there you go. Yeah,
chicken and
maybe we'll
egg
go.
problem.
The problem is that nobody wants to do that work, which is what you talked about at the beginning. And like like we decided as a society like decades ago that manual labor isn't a like worthwhile task or whatever. It's not a great career path, and it's just not like desirable. And so now try like there are active efforts towards like changing that sentiment, but it's going to take some time, and I don't know that it's going to happen fast enough. But mm, yeah,
Well,
the I was
Michael,
reading something. It was like there's literally like trillions of dollars is what it's going to cost to build the power plants to like make the machine like to make AI work in like 5 years.
hmm,
And it's just like so yeah, if you're smart enough to figure out like how do we create power plants that are like 100 times more efficient than like current nuclear power plants, because like that's going to be something I have no idea how to do that. I'm can't even guess, but like that's going to change. There's no way that we're creating power in the same way that we currently are. It's because it's not sustainable. To your point, like that technology has to increase, or that will be the limiting factor of what we're able to do with this stuff.
yeah, I mean, it's interesting that like I always thought The Matrix was a documentary. Here we are, like realizing it was.
Oh yeah, there
So
you
the machines need the power, and we become the power source. Can't wait for that
oh
day.
man, like what was that iRobot or some movie? All these movies from like 20 years ago or something are starting to become reality. I guess I
A
don't
little bit scary. Yeah.
know.
Well,
Yeah.
dude, good chat.
Well,
It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
yeah. And if anybody was wondering, this was not an AI generated podcast, which is a thing now. Like Notebook LM, I just had it create a podcast for me out of that report. And it's just like two fake people, I guess, talked to each other for 15 minutes and educated me on the topic. So maybe one day
Wow.
the Price Sell Paint podcast will just be AI Michael and AI John. But until that time comes, we'll continue to get together here for a couple hours and chat.
I thought the future was friendly. Turns out it's not.
Yeah, I
Michael,
don't know.
thanks, man. And
Probably be
if you're
better.
listening today, and you enjoy this content, feel free to give it a like and subscribe. As always, guys, thanks for hanging out with us. And we'll see you again soon on the Price Sell Paint podcast. Thanks, Michael.
Take care.
This podcast is proudly powered by PaintScout, your partner in painting success.